actually see the flames. About 500 metres away as well, we can hear the rebels are firing mortars up into the air where the Gaddafi bombers are still circling overhead. They drop another bomb inside the fence of the oil storage depot. Gaddafi's forces are clearly targeting this facility. The rebels fire multiple rocket launchers. Their target, not the warplanes, but rather a small group of pro-Gaddafi troops on the ground. Those troops are firing mortars from beneath the oil depot. They appear to be outflanked by the rebels. And all the time, the dense smoke rises, turning the afternoon into a premature night. We take shelter in a ditch in the desert. Unbeknown to us, the rebels have moved more rocket launchers to a sandbank behind us. The pro-Gaddafi troops have spotted them. They send their mortars thundering in.
Guys, we have to go.
We have to get out of here.
The mortar and rocket fire stops for a moment, our chance to escape. We have been 1 kilometre from the front line, and what we have seen has changed our perception of this rebel force. They've demonstrated more know-how than we had given them credit for, and their courage and determination are undeniable.
Well, Jackie, know-how, courage and determination very much on show, as you were pointing out there. But what about organisation? Up till now, we've been hearing reports that this is just a ragtag, disorganised bunch of people who have nothing on their side except for their determination. Is there a leadership structure there? Is there a sense that they know where they're going and they have a strategy?
It's a very mixed picture. I think what we've discovered is the closer you get to the front line, the more experienced, the more skillful the troops that you find there. Certainly way back at the checkpoints, some distance from the front line, you'll find very undisciplined forces firing in the air. But what we saw on the front line were rebel forces who not only knew how to use their weaponry. I mean, you'll have seen in my report how they were using those multiple rocket launch systems to fire those rockets against the pro-Gaddafi tanks, which were on the ground inside the perimeter fence of that oil facility. The fact as well that they were using sandbanks for strategic cover. When we were crouching in that ditch, the rebels were actually only a matter of meters away from us behind a sandbank, and you'll have probably seen in that very striking footage shot by AlJazeera cameraman Shireen Eman, the way that the rockets flew overhead. We were actually lying in the ditch. She was shooting upwards and you could see those multiple rockets firing overhead towards the tanks. I have to say that the Gaddafi forces as well showed a considerable technical skill in using those mortar launchers. They had spotted the rebels behind us. They would fire in a couple of mortars during which they would gauge the distance, how close they were getting. They were getting closer to the rebels. The problem was they were also getting closer to our ditch. And then they did what was called firing for effect. They then just sent in about 6 more mortars landing all around. So both sides on the front line clearly having military experience, knowing how to use those weapons, but as yet, apart from the clear air superiority of the Gaddafi forces, neither side so far having demonstrated the ability to really obliterate the other forces and move on to achieve their objective.
And that's a little bit surprising, isn't it, Jackie? I mean, you would have thought that the state machinery would have been so much better equipped and so much better organised. The fact that the rebels are holding out for so long and keep managing to, it seems, reclaim some of the territory, is that a surprise?
Well, it is curious that this has been in stalemate for such a long time, and we've seen the ragtag nature of the rebels, and we're aware that they're fighting against the standing army of the state of Libya. There are a few things to observe here. One, the fact that Gaddafi in the last 20 years took a tactical decision to downgrade and downsize his armed forces. He, of course, himself came to power through a military coup. He wanted to make sure that the army would never pose the same threat to him. So emphasis and investment instead on his own personal security brigades. What we've also seen as well, there have been questions asked about whether, in fact, the Gaddafi forces have been holding back most of their firepower. If you like, sending the rebels warnings, even trying to give them a false sense of security, tempt them out of their strongholds and then possibly lure them into an ambush in some of the larger towns. But I think that what we are seeing now is clearly an effort by the Gaddafi forces to make sure that the rebels don't get any further west than the Bin Jawad, Ras Lanuf area. They can't allow them to approach too close to Sirte. Sirte, the base of Gaddafi's tribe, also there's an important military airfield there as well with more weapons. I think that as the rebels appear to approach too close, then we're going to see more of that firepower. And we must remember as well that the events of the last days came against the backdrop of intense diplomatic shuttling by Gaddafi's envoys as well. So I think that all of this has to be taken into account.
Jackie Rowland, live in Libya. Thank you for talking to us, Jackie. Well, a little earlier on, I spoke to one of those rebel fighters. Khalid Kwafi's been fighting in Bin Jawad. I asked him who controls that city now.
We reclaimed Bin Jawad, and then big fighting and firing was there. For a few hours we didn't see anybody from Gaddafi troops in Bin Jawad, but actually the leader there was afraid because, you know, the last 3 days when we took Bin Jawad, there was a trick there, so we were afraid from that. So they asked them to go to leave Bin Jawad and stay in the border of that.
How strong are the Gaddafi forces in that region?
I cannot say Gaddafi troops are strong. They have equipment. They have heavy weapons. They have aircrafts. But believe me, they don't have anything. They don't have the faith or to fight. They are really afraid and they are forced to fight. So whenever they hear firing or we attack them, they immediately go back and they try to escape from the battlefield.
Well, Russia's announced it's imposing sanctions on arms sales to Libya. And as all this fighting goes on, Muammar Gaddafi has decided to up his diplomatic efforts as well. Various envoys are on their way to 3 different countries. One of them is Libya's Deputy Defense Minister. He's arrived in Cairo and he's hoping to meet Egypt's military council and the Arab League. Meanwhile, the question of whether to enforce a no-fly zone on Libya is at the top of the agenda for the international community. NATO defence ministers will discuss that in their regular meeting in Brussels on Thursday. The bloc has already said it's not looking to intervene militarily, but it is ready to respond if called on. And in Belgium, the EU's foreign affairs representative will hold a working lunch to discuss Libya, and France's President Nicolas Sarkozy is expected to meet envoys from the rebel National Council. That'll take place in Paris in the coming hours. Well, Libya's deputy foreign minister has also been active. He's been explaining his position to our correspondent Anita McNaught in Tripoli.
So who are you going to meet then? Clarify this for me.
No, we actually, officially speaking, we still have a relationship with all these organizations and capitals. But what happened in the last 2 weeks, as I said, because of the defection of 2 very important ambassadors, the 2 permanent representatives